At EF, we believe the world is a better place when we seek to understand each other. That's a powerful, impactful statement. Today, we're joined by somebody who embodies that belief. Diane Cortazzo has been travelling with EF for almost 30 years. Starting out as a group leader with EF Educational Tours, she's since taken over 1,000 students and adults across the world. We sat down to have a conversation with her about her life, her love for travel, and how big an impact travel has had on her, but also her students and the people who travel with her today. We hope you enjoy. Woo! Hey Diane.
Hello.
It's great to have you here for our first EF Impact Live. You're finally catching a bit of a breather after a pretty whirlwind tour over the last 6 weeks of travel. Just tell us a little bit about where you've been and what you've been up to.
Well, I've just done a back-to-back tour, which I do it because I don't want to go on 4 flights. I want to go on 2 flights. But it was amazing. I started off with a local priest on the Footsteps of St. Paul tour, Greece and Turkey. And then I had 2 days alone in Barcelona to wait for my next group to come over. And that was the amazing, amazing Northern Spain wine and food tour. So if you ever get a chance to go on some of these tours, grab that one, and it's wonderful. But I was there for a full month. And the weather we have today, we had for a full month in Europe. So while you guys were getting rained on, we were having a great time.
That's amazing. But you haven't always been such a globetrotter. You know, growing up in Pennsylvania, you told me when we first met, your family trips were often as exotic as the Poconos. Just tell me a little bit about your story growing up and what travel meant to you when you were younger.
Yeah, I had a wonderful childhood, wonderful parents, but we weren't the traveling family at all. So travel was a picnic up at Promised Land in the Poconos for the day. What I am today, it's only because of this company.
And, let's go ahead to, the early 1990s. You're a German teacher. Your mother's from Austria, which is why you speak German. You've only traveled a little bit, but what changed? There was a really seminal moment for you when that change came over in your life.
Yeah, my parents both died when they were 81, and I was with my father on his deathbed. And while we were talking in those days leading up, my dad looked at me and said, Diane, I did a lot of things right in my life. But my mother, who had lived in Austria, had begged him over and over, let's go back. I want to see where I lived when I was a little girl. And you got to go back to those years. These were people of the Depression. They were very frugal, wonderful people, but they weren't travelers. And it was scary to my father to do this. So he looked at me and he said, I wish I had taken your mother back. So if you ever get a chance to travel, I want you to travel. So I was a German teacher at Parkland High School in Allentown at the time. And 2 months after that statement, my principal made an announcement that they were lifting the ban on international travel. So that day I walked into the office and I said, I'm taking my German students to Germany. What do I need to do? And that's how I started. It was because of a certain statement made by my dad right before he died.
And that must have felt quite an out there thing for you to do. Someone who hasn't traveled before, you were really putting your neck out there and taking a risk, huh?
Yeah, because on the first tour, I got another German teacher to help me, and I went, what do we do now? And, well, let's just pick where we want to go, and let's keep it simple. So we said, Vienna, Salzburg, Munich. We'll get a little bit of everything. We got 90 students on the first tour, double buses. So that's how it started. The other German teacher took one bus, I took the other bus. We just did it, and it became a tradition.
And that was with EF Educational Tours, our student tour as part of the company. What brought you to EF? What was it about us, and why did you come to us?
That's an excellent question, and I wish I'd have a memory of that. We just found you. You had good reviews, and I think we probably just said, let's try this one, and didn't look at any others. And then once we started with you, the loyalty just was there. It was so good that I never wanted to go anywhere else.
Yeah, why would you? And like, so that's, in the 90s, and since then, and get this, Diane has taken over 540 kids away with EF educational tours. That deserves a round of applause. But that's 540 kids. Those are so many amazing moments that you could have had with them. Are there any particular aha moments that really stand out in your memory?
I always think about this one thing. There's this little church. It's called the Wieskirche, which is near Neuschwanstein. So there's this white plain church. But when you walk in, it's like Rococo, Baroque. I mean, it's like it threw up in there. It's just beautiful. It's the most beautiful church. So what I always do, and people always say, well, how much fun could you have going back to the same places for so many times? Well, it was watching their faces. So what I would do is I'd be the first one in the church. I'd step aside and I didn't look at the church. I would watch their faces as they walked into the church. And I mean, it was amazing. I wish I'd have a video of what their faces looked like. So for me, as I continued to do it, it wasn't what am I experiencing? What am I experiencing through those kids, as they were coming in?
I mean, practically speaking, having the opportunity for these youngsters to almost put their German into practice, what did that mean for you back home as a teacher, having that opportunity to refer to things that you had literally taken them to see in Germany and Austria?
It changed me as a teacher 100%. Because before that, there were film strips. That's what I was, we're not talking the technology of today. So I'd be showing them, maybe them, a certain church or a square in a town. But now I could talk to them about what I ate in that restaurant, what the people were like. And it changed me as a teacher. And in fact, that's why I always wanted teachers and administrators to come with me, because I knew if I brought a history teacher along, if I brought my principal along, then it was going to help the whole school, because these people were going to be changed too. So that's why, as time went on, I was insisting. I kept after my school and saying, we got to get more teachers to come with me, and that's what they did then.
Now, it was only a couple of years after you started with EF Educational Tours that you went on and became a group coordinator with EF Go Ahead. Mm-hmm. What was it that turned you towards the adult tours part of our offering?
Demand. You could only take so many chaperones, and there were all these teachers saying, hey, we want to go. And then I just was looking online and I realized you had this other division. So 98 was my first student tour. 2000 was my first Go Ahead tour. In the beginning, being a teacher, a mother, wife, I could only do summer travel. I do no summer travel anymore. But the summer travel, in the beginning, I did 1 year ET, next year Go Ahead. And until I retired. And then I went crazy, and I'm doing 4 to 5 Go Aheads a year, filling them up. I have 2 filled in 2027, 4 filled next year.
And it must be really interesting, having spent so many years as a teacher and taking the 540 kids over to Austria and Germany, and then moving into the Go Ahead sphere. What's it like, sort of like the difference between the adults and the kids? Seeing the different experiences they have. How do those two experiences compare?
You'll be surprised that adults aren't much different from the kids. They get as excited as the kids do. They do love having more free time, of course, and I can drink a cocktail with dinner. And I'm on a wine and food tour. It's almost a rule, I got to do this. So it's different, but the reactions are very similar.
Yeah, because you were saying that, what you absolutely love is to see. You really love to see that first-time traveler, right? You want to give that person that first opportunity to even be outside of their own country. What's that experience like, giving someone that opportunity?
Yeah, whenever I ask, okay, we always do a pre-departure party, of course, and okay, who's never been to Europe before? Those are my people, because everything to them is amazing. Everything is just exciting, and because they know they have you and others helping them, they're not scared anymore, because I deal with mostly retirees. Obviously, I'm retired 12 years now. Retirees, they want to travel. They've waited to travel. They've probably traveled less than some of you in here. They definitely want to know that they're going to be supported, and if they have a question, there's going to be somebody to answer it. all along, pre-tour, on tour, and even after tour. So I find that it's really nice that they feel backed up by us, and then they can just have a great time. So those are the people. They're not jaded at all. They just want to have a good time.
Yeah. I mean, at EF, we're kind of united by this belief that we are, the world's a better place when we seek to understand each other. Why is it important to give people these opportunities to go to places that they've never been to experience cultures they've never been to in the past?
Well, just think how the world is these days, right? The world's a tough place right now. It seemed it was much easier when I was a little kid or when I was a young person. But I read things online in these different groups, and people like, my people are scared to go such and such a place, or, I have parents calling me, what's going on here? And it's just, when you get out there and you see people want us to come and visit, people are so nice to us. It's just a lovely experience. So, and then passing it on, like one time I was on a training tour on staff when I was doing ET, and two of the people on that training tour were two of my ex-students who are now teachers on my training tour, because they were now running some tours. So, and I always brag about this, and I shouldn't, but I've referred a lot of people to both. I've referred a lot of people to ET and Go Ahead, and that way, like, I know my time to do this is gonna end. So when I can't do this anymore, physically or whatever, I just know that those people that I referred, now they're taking people, and that's what makes me feel good, that maybe I had a little bit to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's for, kids you've taken away, like on these student tours, is for your go-ahead tour travelers as well. But it also it's your family as well. Like, this has had such a big impact on your family. Like, just, tell me about, your son Kurt and your daughter Jamie.
Well, my daughter, she travels with work all the time. She's traveled with me. First time, my son was 10 and she was 13, and I brought them on and paid for them on an ET tour, my first one. And by the time I stopped doing it, she and her husband were chaperoning for me. But my son, also, he has a little boy right now who's going to be 3 years old shortly, and he's got a passport. Zeke has a passport and has been to Costa Rica. He's been to Vienna, Salzburg, and to the Prague. And my son took him to this, the place, I think it's called Hellbrunn, where there's this magic garden with the water faucets and stuff. And we have video of him running through there. And I remember my son as a senior on tour. And there he was with his 3-year-old running where I had taken him. So for my own family, we didn't travel until I started with you guys. We did the little things, but the first big trip was to Europe.
It's beautiful. 30 years of travel with EF, it's a long time. What is it that motivates you to keep sharing these places with people?
I think it's just my personality. I like to talk. My poor husband. My husband is much quieter, thank God, because if I talked all the time and he talked all the time, nobody would be listening. But my husband is wonderful. He's traveled on almost all these tours with me. He was a chaperone. The kids loved him. But when I'm on tour, I can talk to all these different people. I can bring some of my expertise. Simple things like, what kind of a credit card should you take? Or should you exchange money? Or is it a cashless society? Where are we going and what's it like? So I just get to talk a lot, and it gives my husband a break. He doesn't have to listen that much all the time. So I think it's just what I like doing.
And 30 years with EF, what is it that keeps you coming back to us? What has kept you here all these years?
You treat me well. You treat me, look at this, No, you treat your group leaders and you treat your coordinators really well. I was treated well as a teacher in my district, but it's not like this. It's not where you guys are here to help us, to get us, to make us feel so comfortable. So why wouldn't I come back? Who says no to this? Nobody says no to this.
Yeah, and just to wrap up, like, if you could go back to, yourself 30 years ago and, tell them what's on the way, what do you think Diane of the 1990s would have said?
Hell no, there's no way. No, I could have never have dreamt what my life was going to be like. I mean, I've gone to one papal audience. I'm going to another one next year. I've walked on the wall of China. I've ridden a camel around the pyramids. I've been in Morocco. I've zip-lined in Costa Rica. Diane back there would have never thought she was going to get to do any of those things. And here I am.
And here you are. Diane, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for your work and your efforts over the last 30 years to bring the joy of travel to so many people, in the EF world, and for potentially changing so many lives, not just your own, but your families, and for everybody who's traveled with you. And I'm sure many of the people who work alongside Diane have been touched by her and her charm and charisma. So thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much. And everybody just give Diane a round of applause. Thank you all for turning out. We do have some time for questions. We've got 5-10 minutes.
Thanks, Jamie. First off, thank you so much for sharing all your stories. I think for me, I always get emotional at this stuff. I've been here for 10 years and the stories they never stop doing that to you. My question is about, we've talked a lot about quote unquote our impact on you and your students and your family. I'd like to hear a little bit about your impact on us. So are there any, special moments with the various staff you've worked with over the years, or connections you've had with the people that have helped you set up the tours?
I almost want to start with an apology to any team member who's ever worked with me. So to all the people who've worked with me, I am very demanding. I will say that right up front. I know what you're capable of, and I expect that every single trip. Every single trip, I expect that, and I get it. But there are times where I get a thought in my head, right? I get a thought in my head, there's a question I have. Send it in an email, right to Rachel. I'm retired. I'm sitting at home. I figure I got time, you got time, right? So I talked to Rachel earlier this year, and I said, Rachel, I'm going to try harder. I'm going to try harder. I'm going to write my list down. I'm going to set up an appointment, and we talked about it. And then, of course, I traveled for a month. But now we're going to pick that up again. I am going to be better to you because I know you guys have other people you actually talk to besides me. So, there are people in here that I've worked with, and so many of them came over and gave me hugs. They start feeling like family. Tour directors, they're family. I've worked with one gentleman recently. He was on my Spain trip, and I was with him when he found out he was going to have a daughter. His daughter is now in college, and we have traveled for 20-some years together. So I want to thank all of you for what you do. And here's another thing. Are there a lot of ET people in here, I think? All right. Teachers, we're good at talking. We're not so good at listening. So when you start that conversation, the first thing I want you to ask them are you taking notes? Ask them if they're taking notes, because if they're not, they're going to forget everything you told them. So make sure you do that. And teachers are very busy, and they do their very best. And whenever I see, maybe somewhere I see a comment somewhere that says, my consultant didn't get back to me, right away I go on there and say, make an appointment, set up a time to talk with them, because you do know they have a lot of people they're responsible for. So I'm going to try to help you guys if I can by telling GLs and coordinators, hey, you're not the only person they're talking to, so let's give them a little bit of grace. So I think we need to do that.
Thanks for the question. Other questions?
Thank you so much for being here. I am part of the educational tours cohort up here, so thank you for all that you've done on the lives that you changed. And in that same vein, I'm wondering if you have a student or a story that comes to mind of an impact while you were traveling, a student whose life maybe you changed, or a specific moment where you just saw it all click for a child or something.
Yeah. What happened, it actually happened twice. You get your kids together and then you send out a note to the faculty, is there anybody on this list that you would be concerned about me taking abroad? Because you got to worry about that. So one time it was a young man who they said, he's in detention pretty often. I'm not sure about this guy. I brought him in one-on-one and talked to him, and I said, look, I'm going to tell you straight up, there's some people who are questioning whether you're going to be responsible enough to be on this tour. And I said, I want to take you, but you better convince me that this is a good idea. And he talked to me, actually from the heart. He really was really nice. And he said, Frau, I'll be the best kid on that trip. He was the best kid on that trip. So I think, sometimes we have to understand that you don't just take the AP student, sometimes the kids who are not the AP students, they get even more out of it because they're just so thrilled to be there. So,
Yep, well, straight up, hands straight up at the back.
Thank you also for being here. I greatly respect all the change that you've made in all those kids' lives. And I know you made a comment on today, the world is scary. So I am curious how you are setting expectations for the travel that you have had this past spring with your travelers and what you're telling them for this summer and fall.
well, my number one statement is always, I know this company, they're not going to take us somewhere where it's going to be a bad situation. Looking back, remember when the war in the Ukraine broke out, when it just started? Well, my first stop on my tour that year was Budapest. As we know, is in Hungary, right next door to the Ukraine. I had 4 women come to me and tell me I should reschedule the whole thing. And I said, no, I've talked to the company. And honestly, there was more talk of the war in the Ukraine here in the States than there was in Hungary. So I said, I can't reschedule this. So what we decided to do, I thought, well, let's be a change here. Let's do something positive about this situation. So I started a thing on Facebook and I collected money because I knew that in Budapest, there was a refugee center and I said, we're going there. What we want to do is we want to collect money for the Red Cross in Hungary. So we collected $8,000, took that over, and then I called the hotel and I spoke to a woman there. I said, is there anything hands-on we could do to help these people, the refugees? She goes, well, yeah, we have a thing at the hotel here. Well, if you would pay for the makings for sandwiches and your people would come in, the chef will have it set up, you make the sandwiches in the hotel, and then we'll deliver it over to the refugee center. And then we did that, and then they said, Diane, would you like to come over? We can give you a tour of the refugee center, and you could deliver them. So I went with them, and we delivered the sandwiches. So I just keep telling them again and again that you guys have offices all over. You've got boots on the ground. So that is, I think, your biggest selling point and the reason I would never go anywhere else.
Wow. I think that deserves a round of applause, doesn't it? Yeah. All right, maybe one more question, or yeah?
Yeah, thank you again. I mean, where are you headed next? You got a lot of bookings. Love to hear about it.
Yes, well, I have 8 tours set up. The next 2 are another back-to-back in September. We're doing Scandinavia, followed by the Oktoberfest tour, Jewels of Alpine Europe, which is one of my all-time favorites. So that, I start losing track of where the next ones are, but next year will be Chile and Argentina, wine and food. It'll be a customized Ireland tour. Your customized department is excellent. I want to thank them. We're doing the Rome pilgrimage tour next year, including the towns of Padre Pio. So that's one of our priests, the priest on tour asked for that. So we were able to make that work. Where else are we going next year? I'm doing the Bali. Now that's a good problem to have, where you forget where you're going. I'm doing the Egypt and Jordan. The next year, I'm doing the new Sicily and Malta because I had to miss the Sicily and Malta convention. I'm always traveling a lot of times when the conventions are, so then I have to run the tour. So that's what I'm doing.
Bummer.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Yeah, it's a nice problem to have that you can't remember where you're going and that your trips are filling in hours. So it's a good gig. Good gig.
Awesome. Well, Diane, over 1,000 people you've taken abroad. You've been to 40 countries, many of them multiple times. Your story is absolutely incredibly inspiring. So thank you so much again for coming out to see us. If you guys enjoyed this, obviously on ef.com/impact, we've got so many stories like Diane. So feel free, go on there, check them out. They're all inspiring. Maybe not quite as inspiring as this one.
I love him.
But
doesn't he have a great accent? And he looks wonderful in a kilt.
I won't tell you how she knows that. Thank you all so much for coming and being part of this.